Welcome. This video is called A Crash Course in Recordex. Over the next 20 minutes or so, the goal is to provide you with a basic orientation of your new Recordex Simplicity Touch interactive board. We'll start with some basic functions to get you started, share some important procedures, and discuss some programs that you can use with your Recordex board for whole or small group instruction. Let's begin. So right now you're looking at an example of a Recordex board. Now this one is in District Office. It's mounted a lot higher. It's mounted for an adult. So the board in your room will be a little bit lower. But let's start by turning the Recordex board on. There's actually two ways to turn the Recordex board on. You can either use the remote by pushing that button. And you'll notice that when you turn the board on, it's going to take about 20 to 25 seconds to power on. So while we're waiting, let's talk a little bit about the Recordex board. One of the things that you'll notice is that your board is a flat panel. You can see on the side it's very thin. The other thing that you'll probably notice is that there's no overhead projector. Instead, all of the electronics are in the back, which means that when you turn it on, you'll get a great picture. You also won't have any shadows or any distortion like you may have with a smartboard. The bulb should always be on, and you shouldn't have to worry about those times when your projector bulb is fading and you have to turn off the lights to see the image. You'll always get a very bright, very crisp picture. So I want to share another button on the remote, and that's the input button. Now in your classroom, your input should be on DP. But there may be times when you turn your Recordex board on in your classroom and you get this image. It just means that it's set to the wrong input. So all you have to do is select input, move over to DP, and that should then show you your computer's desktop. The other way you can do it is through the buttons on the bottom left. Press input and use the volume buttons to toggle through to DP. So let's talk a little bit about writing on your Recordex board. As you'll notice, this is my computer screen, and my Recordex board will display anything that's on my computer screen. But what's a little bit different about a Recordex board than a smartboard is the fact that there's actually an operating system inside the board. Whereas it doesn't just display what's on your computer, it can, but it also has its own system, its own brain essentially, that will let you write or draw over anything. So I want to show you a little bit about this. With the smartboard, you have a series of pens, and these pens allow you to write in different colors. With a Recordex board, you will receive 3 pens like this, but these are essentially just a hollow pen with a rubber tip on them. So you can typically use anything to write on your Recordex board, whether it's your finger, or maybe it's even a stylus, or some other items that maybe you used on your smartboard. So to instantly start writing on anything, even the desktop, it's really easy with a Recordex board. You may want to practice this as soon as you can get into your classroom. You want to look right for the Recordex logo on the bottom. Once you find that logo, take 2 fingers and spread them almost so you can make a number 2 or a peace sign. And from the bottom, you want to swipe up. You'll hear that chime, and when you hear the chime, you can see an icon all the way to the right-hand side of the screen. Tap the icon, choose pencil, and now you'll be able to write on your Recordex board. You'll notice that there's a series of different colors that you can choose. I'm going to choose blue. And now I'm going to write in the same way that I could on my smartboard. So here's an example of how I can use this feature. This is a map of the Rochester area, and let's say that I wanted to point out where Spencerport is located. Again, I just find the Recordex logo, take 2 fingers, swipe up. I can hear that chime. I'm going to come over to this icon. I'm going to tap my pen and then choose my color. And then from here, what I can do is locate Spencerport on the map, maybe make some other annotations or other marks. Using those same features, I can also erase by just tapping the eraser, selecting my size, and just erasing this way. Now this will work great in situations where you just need to write something really quick. If it was something that I wanted to save, it's not really possible. There is an option where you can take a photo of your screenshot, but we have a much better option that we'll share a little bit later in the video. But once you're done with the writing feature, you just have to select the X button, tap on the board, and then just tap again. And you'll notice that the options to write on the board have disappeared. Now I can navigate through this page just like a website. So let's talk a little bit about volume. On your remote, you can find the volume at the bottom right-hand side. You can also find volume at the bottom left-hand side of your Recordex board. But you'll also want to pay close attention to the actual volume on your computer, which you'll see at the bottom right. If you're showing a video or audio from a website, you then may also have to pay attention to the audio on the website. All 3 of these sources will contribute to how the audio is going to sound in your classroom. So in this situation, I'm going to turn my audio up. You can either use the remote, or from the board you can take your finger and just add this all the way up. So this situation may happen to you. I'm trying to play a video, my volume is at 100%, but when I go to play the video, I can't hear any audio. Remember, the audio from the bottom right-hand side of the computer. Remember, your computer system audio is also going to be important. So I can take my system audio and I can turn that up. Now I heard the chime, but I still don't have any audio from the video. So what I'll have to do is go over to my video, unmute it, so now I can hear the audio playing from the video. As you can imagine, monitoring several different levels of audio can be a little confusing. So what we typically recommend, and then monitor the levels on your Recordex board, either through the volume controls on your remote or using touch to turn the volume up or down. So again, to set up the volume, turn your computer's audio all the way up to 100 and monitor the levels using your Recordex board. One of the really unique features of the Recordex board is that there's actually 10 points of touch, which means that you could, if you could fit them, put 10 students in front of the board and all have them writing at the same exact time. So let me demonstrate. Here's an example of an addition worksheet that's up on the board in front of the class. What I can do is have several students come up to the board, again, using the option to turn the touch on by taking 2 fingers, tapping the touch button, and selecting whatever color you want to write with. It's going to be a little hard to demonstrate in this video since I only have one free hand, but in this scenario, what you could do is have multiple students writing on the Recordex board at the same time. This is different from a smartboard, which would typically just allow one student to write. So at the same time, students could collaboratively be working together solving some of these problems. What that allows your Recordex board to do is not only to serve as a tool for whole group instruction, but also for small group centers, small group instruction, and collaboration. So here's one thing to keep in mind is this: when your options to write are turned on, as they are right here, you'll notice that you can't scroll up and down. It's only going to allow me to write or to make marks. And if I click the X, same thing. It's not going to allow me to do this. And that's because this option to write on the Recordex board is turned on. So all I have to do is turn it off by just tapping the board, or sometimes it will go off on its own. So again, to enable touch, all you have to do is take 2 fingers, swipe up, and you'll notice that your touch is set to turn on. Now, if you want this to be turned off, all you have to do is just tap on the board. And then when this is here, this eventually does disappear, but if you don't want to go ahead and do the 2-finger swipe, to enable touch again, all you have to do is press this button and it will automatically turn on. From this menu, you can also access some other features, including the option to turn on your Recordex board audio. This is the input button, an undo button, and several different other features. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this topic, but one of the interesting things about a Recordex board is that it does have its own operating system, which means in theory, you don't even need the computer to use the Recordex board. Let me show you. If you enable that touch screen and then press the home button, this is going to take you to a screen where you can use the Recordex board on its own without needing the computer. Now, you'll probably never be in this situation, so again, we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but you'll notice from this menu, there is the option to use the Express software. Now, this is Recordex, their version of Smart Notebook, basically, and because it is so specific to the Recordex board, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. But if you'd like to check this out, feel free to take a look on your own. But to get out of that, we can just press the home button, and again, that is going to take us to the main menu of the operating system. And if this ever happens where you or a student accidentally presses the home button, you get here and you can't figure out how to get back to your computer screen, you'll notice that on the bottom right-hand side, there's an input button, the same button that's on your remote. All you have to do is select back to input, and again, that will take you back to your computer screen. So there's a number of different programs that you can use with your Recordex board to write, and you're going to want to use these programs in different situations. So let's take a look at one. This is Microsoft Word. Not a lot of people know this, but Microsoft Word actually has its own annotation tools. This is called Windows Digital Ink. And you can find this by accessing it from the review menu up at the top. And going all the way to the right-hand side to where it says Start Inking. You'll now see a menu up at the top, which will give you several different options to write. You can see that the pen is selected. So once my pen is selected, I just have to choose my color. And I can now write directly on my document. Now, what's nice about using Word is when I write up here, if I want to scroll to the bottom of the screen, all I have to do is switch from pen to the selection arrow, and now I can scroll down and I can write directly underneath it. Remember, I'm on select, so I just have to switch now to pen, change my color, and now I can write directly underneath. This is something that you can't do if you were using the built-in annotation tools that are available on the Recordex board. You can also see other options for writing, a highlighter, an eraser, several different options to change the color. So definitely a great tool to use. And then if you're in Word and you ever don't want to enable this, maybe you want to add some text, all you have to do is stop inking by pressing the button at the top left-hand side. Another option that you may want to check out is using PowerPoint. This works really well if you are going to create a visual to accompany a lesson. So once your visual is completed in PowerPoint, you can launch it as a presentation. And once this is in PowerPoint, of course, you can tap on the screen to advance to the next slide. But one thing that you'll notice is that at the bottom left, if you just kind of tap the screen, you'll see very lightly some options for writing. So if I just select the pen, select my color, now what I can do is I can write directly on the screen using some of those built-in features that are available on PowerPoint. So I've written a little bit on my slide. If I want to then advance to the next slide, all I would have to do is select this button, and now it's taking me to the next slide. So this is a great option if you have lessons that you've already pre-created in PowerPoint and you just want to add some simple annotations, some drawing, maybe circling, maybe writing your own words. This will be a great option if it's something that's already pre-created that you already have finished. The last program that I want to show you, and this is going to be really quick because you can do a lot with this program, but it's called the last program that I want to show you is Microsoft Whiteboard. Now you can really do a lot with Microsoft Whiteboard, and this is only going to be a really small demonstration. But I love Microsoft Whiteboard because this is a great option if you just want to start from scratch, maybe in the same way that you would use a smart notebook file. So you'll notice at the bottom that there's different options to write. You have all kinds of different colors. You can choose your own colors. There's a ruler. There's some different options that you can use to write directly onto your screen. Here's an example of a straight edge that you can use. And what I like about Microsoft Whiteboard is that you essentially have an infinite canvas. So essentially, I can take this and I can just kind of make this smaller, and I can move to a different spot. And now I can write more information on my screen. Microsoft Whiteboard also supports the option for multiple touch. So we talked a little bit about using your Recordex board in a small group situation. Here's a great example. What you could do, whether it's in front of the class or it's in a small group, is set up a workspace, and you could have students work on the individual squares. Now, what's nice about Whiteboard, and it's going to be, again, a little tricky to demonstrate, is there's an option where you can actually share this with a number of different people through a link. So essentially, you can create a whiteboard, create a hyperlink, share that hyperlink in Schoology, and then multiple students can actually work on writing information in their whiteboard directly on their own laptop. So it's a really cool idea. This is something that you should definitely check out, and we'll be offering professional development on this throughout the year. So another option is Microsoft Whiteboard. So another option for the addition problem that we talked about is Microsoft Whiteboard. We just saw how to do this in Microsoft Word. So you can also do this using Microsoft Whiteboard. So all you have to do is find a spot, press on the board, and then select the option to paste. And there we go. There's our worksheet. I can use this option to make the worksheet bigger. Now I can go through and solve some of these problems, and you'll notice that when I switch from the mode from writing to just that selection, when I move the worksheet, all of my writing and my inking is going to stay directly on that image. So one of the big questions that we get about Recordex boards is just the option for cleaning. And it may be hard to see on the video, but as You'll notice in your classroom, your Recordex board will get smudges on it from time to time, get fingerprints on it. One of the things that you can do to clean your board is just to take a cloth, almost the same cloth that you would use to clean a television set or maybe a pair of glasses, one that does not have fibers or linens on it. You can use that to remove some of the smudges. Now, if you have a spot that's really hard to get out, you may consider just very lightly taking a damp cloth, adding some moisture to it to clean it off. Not dripping or not drenched, but just a little bit damp, and that should allow you to clean any hard to get off spots. But for the most part, I think outside of smudges, your Recordex board should be pretty clean. This has been a crash course in Recordex. We hope that these videos will give you enough confidence to start thinking about and to try to explore some ways to use your Recordex board in the classroom this fall. Now, I'm sure once the year begins, you'll have a lot of questions, and when this happens, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you for watching, and good luck with your Recordex board this fall.